Hey everyone, it is Wednesday, which means it is time for our political update. It's also Valentine's Day. We do love our politics here in Georgia, so let's get right into it. We're going to start with what is not really a new story to anyone. It is probably the most dominant story in Georgia political headlines and has been for maybe even the last couple of years, but this is a new chapter. Tomorrow, we could see some testimony from those two right there, District Attorney Fani Willis in Fulton County, and the man she hired to be the top prosecutor in the very historic, very controversial indictment of former President Donald Trump and others over election meddling back in 2020. The reason for this is because it came to light just the last month that these two were involved in a personal romantic relationship, and the claims here filed by one of the defendants in this case, a former Trump campaign staffer by the name of Michael Roman and his attorneys, is that they were both profiting off of this. And it's true that Nathan Wade, who was a defense attorney, really didn't have a whole ton of experience prosecuting cases in general, was getting these large sums of money, almost $600,000 since January of 2021 from the DA's office. And so they might be called to testify tomorrow. Now, this is, according to a judge, all going to depend on some of the testimony from other witnesses in this case who have been subpoenaed. They include members of the district attorney's staff, her press team, her security detail, even her dad got a subpoena, someone who rented her a house in the past, to kind of establish the groundwork for, yeah, they were in a relationship and there may have been some personal gain there. Now, what these defendants are asking for is for Willis and Wade to both be removed from the case. They have also asked for their charges to be dropped if the judge finds there is a conflict of interest, but it's more likely that if he decides that, this case will be moved. So our Tori Cooper was covering this for us this week. Let's hear what she had to say about it.
The defense is not bringing you facts. The defense is not bringing you law. The defense is bringing you gossip.
Attorney Anna Cross, representing the Fulton County DA's office, says defendants are basing their claims of when Fani Willis and Nathan Wade's relationship began off hearsay.
Even if all of the allegations were true, and they're not, that is not a basis to either dismiss the indictment or disqualify the district attorney's office.
Willis and Wade claim they did not have a romantic relationship before Willis appointed Wade as special prosecutor. But tonight, defense attorney Ashley Merchant told the court the timeline is not matching up with the evidence.
The relationship predated Mr. Wade being hired as special counsel.
Merchant claims the testimony of Nathan Wade's former law partner, Terrence Bradley, will refute the timeline of the relationship.
While it's very awkward to call someone just a liar, that's what's happening. It's the legal equivalency of that.
Judge McAfee ruled Bradley will have to testify in Thursday's hearing to determine if Wade and Willis are off the RICO case. Expert attorney Josh Schiffer says this could make things worse for DA Willis.
And that brings up some very serious allegations that could include perjury. It is never a good position to be considered by a court to have misled the court or to have had a filing with notable inconsistencies.
And so, again, that'll be a decision that will be made day of. It's going to be very game time as to whether the district attorney and Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor, will have to get up there and testify. It really all depends on what people who are members of their most innermost circle end up telling the judge. And so we'll certainly look forward to that tomorrow. It'll be one of the more consequential things to happen in this case that has already been full of quite a bit of consequential action as it is. So moving on, there was also a pretty big development in the last couple of days out of Washington, D.C. That building right there, the Supreme Court, seems about ready to put Donald Trump, the former president and current GOP frontrunner, back on the ballot, the primary ballot, in both Colorado and New Hampshire. He was not able, because of a state Supreme Court ruling, to appear on those primary ballots. It was the state Supreme Court in both Colorado and New Hampshire that had ruled that because of a very little known section of the Constitution. It's the 14th Amendment, which everyone is familiar with, but Section 3 of that amendment states that if you took an oath as an officer of the United States and then, quote, engaged in insurrection or rebellion, unquote, against the country, you'd be barred from office. But the thing is, and you'll hear this in just a moment, but it doesn't specifically say anything about the president, the office of the president. It mentions specifically Senate, House of Representatives seats, electors for the president or vice president, but it doesn't specifically mention the office of the presidency in there. It was something that was came into the Constitution after the Civil War, obviously, right? We're talking about rebellion and insurrection, and a lot of people had kind of posited that January 6th and the actions taken by the former president, Donald Trump, constituted an insurrection or a rebellion. And so obviously the Supreme Courts in both New Hampshire and Colorado agreed, but the Supreme Court didn't seem to convince when they argued it this week. And I got a chance to talk to a constitutional law expert about it. Let's take a listen. Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution isn't the most well-known. In fact, Georgia State law professor Eric Siegel says most constitutional law professors gloss right over it in their teachings.
No one ever taught it before this year.
That's because this year, Colorado's highest court used that little-known provision to keep Donald Trump off the state's primary ballots. Section 3 was added to the Constitution after the Civil War and barred people who've engaged in, quote, rebellion or insurrection from holding office. But Siegel says there is lots of room for interpretation.
The idea is a good one, but to make it a real idea in real life with real courts and real politicians is unbelievably complicated.
This was the first time the Supreme Court has ever heard a case involving Section 3, and there's no timeline for their ultimate decision. But it could overturn the Colorado judge's ruling and place Trump's name back on the ballot there and in New Hampshire, whose high court made a similar decision. Siegel thinks that is exactly what will happen.
The Supreme Court is going to say states can't disqualify the president absent congressional authorization. Congress is not going to authorize that. He's not going to be disqualified.
Also in Washington Thursday, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene filed her second ethics complaint against District Attorney Fani Willis, the woman prosecuting Trump in Fulton County. Greene told the Georgia State Ethics Commission that Willis's admission of a relationship with her top prosecutor should bar her from going any further with the historic indictment of Trump and others. All right, and so again, there's really no timeline for that Supreme Court ruling, but we talked to more than a few constitutional law experts who all kind of shared the same opinion as Professor Siegel there, in saying that the Supreme Court really does not seem likely or poised to uphold those rulings in Colorado or New Hampshire. They actually, in fact, seem ready to reverse those court's orders lock, stock, and barrel. So we'll keep you updated on that. Something else that happened here in Georgia that really had some national significance was the governor. We'll start here. He recently took a trip to the border of Texas and the United States border with Mexico down there in Texas, along with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, governors from several other states, all Republicans, really expressing a lot of concern about the free flow of immigrants coming in through that little area there that they went to visit. And so Kemp came back. We weren't sure what he was going to do. We knew he was taking that trip down there. And then from the steps of the Capitol yesterday, he announced that Georgia would be sending somewhere between 15 to 20 National Guard troops to assist at the border to kind of keep things a little tighter down there. It's really an interesting move by the governor here. He, in his address after visiting the border with Mexico down in Texas, he said every state is a border state, even though Georgia doesn't actually share any sort of geographical border with Mexico. He was very concerned about some of the problems that is being caused by this massive influx, really recent massive influx of immigration that we've seen there. Even just yesterday, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, was impeached by the U.S. House over his policies that Republicans in the House of Representatives say has led to a very porous border and all the impacts that have come from it. And so, again, 15 to 20 National Guardsmen from Georgia will be sent to the border. And our Tori Cooper covered this for us. Here she is.
Today, we reinforce our commitment to keeping Georgians safe, but also the right of states to defend themselves against threats.
Governor Brian Kemp says the Biden administration is failing Georgians by failing to act on stronger immigration policies, and now he's taking his own approach.
And we have no choice but to step in. Therefore, I'm announcing today that in addition to the Georgia Guardsmen already stationed at the border, we will send reinforcements to Texas this spring.
Right now, 29 members of Georgia's National Guard are already in Eagle Pass, assisting with surveillance. Governor Kemp says now he's sending 15 to 20 more to set up a command post to help Texas Governor Greg Abbott and law enforcement officials stop thousands of migrants from crossing into the United States.
We're going to be doing engineering, kind of setup type work. So, our National Guard's not going to be going and arresting people. We're trying to free up the Border Patrol to simply do apprehensions and do a lot of that back-end work.
While Kemp says this is a public safety move to stop illegal drugs, human trafficking, and criminals from crossing, Democrat state senators like Jason Estevez say it's a political move, sending the wrong message to migrant communities.
The issues at the border should be resolved by Congress. Immigrants typically or generally feel targeted by a lot of the rhetoric and the political rhetoric that is used by folks like the governor.
All right, and that'll do it for this week's political update. Remember, you can catch this segment here on our streaming platform every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And we also encourage you to download the Atlanta News First app. It's where you can get all your latest headlines, local, state, and national, and beyond. So we'll see you next week, everyone. Thanks for watching.